Hello, everybody, and today we're celebrating 1 year of Pod and Deliver. Joining us today is return guest, Cristina Valdez. Welcome, Mom.
Thank you, son. I'm happy to join both of you today.
Thank you, Mother.
I have to say this, the one thing, only because you've heard this all our lives, Mother, but I have to just say, the one thing I was telling Jake not to do before the camera started rolling, he's doing a lot. He's done it like 3 times already, but I've given up. Like, he took that cue to do it 3 times as many times.
I don't know. I just...
Let's just move on. I've given up. Mother.
I love you. I love you.
Thank you for not giving, first of all, Mom, thank you for not giving up on us.
Oh, never.
When there have been ample opportunities. I just thought, I was thinking about what we're going to do. We've been here for a year. We've been doing these shows. I was just telling a friend of mine that, I don't know, we have 120 something subscribers, but it's already impacted my life, having done this show, because of many people we've talked to and many ideas. But as I was thinking about what we should do, I saw that our first episode was on this book. Wait a minute, let me bring it out here. 84 Charing Cross Road. Oops, there you go. And I thought, let's do it again. Plus, you recently read it, or maybe you reread it, and with your book club. First of all, let me ask this, Mom. Why this book? Why do we keep coming back to it? What is its pull and magic?
Well, one of the things is you recommended it to me, and I love when you recommend books, and I love them. I love the classics, and this is definitely a classic. I love true story, autobiographies, biographies, and that's why I love it. And you get to know the characters and who they are and what their meaning is, what their lives are about, and that always just interests me very much.
Now, this particular book is the story of a woman who is a writer, but also somebody who loves books. I introduced it last year under that kind of lens of, I like books. Of course, I like books. I like to read, but I also like books about books. And this definitely qualifies, but it also has this interplay between these 2 characters, Helene Hanff, a writer, and a bookseller living in London. Helene Hanff living in New York, and their correspondence, a series of letters. What starts off as a request for a book or 2, perhaps, ends up being this relationship, platonic relationship back and forth that really turns into something very meaningful, doesn't it? And which character would you like to discuss? Because there's 2 central characters, and I could go either way. Jake could chime in with the other one. Who really stood out, Mom, in this book?
Well, for sure, Helene to me was probably, because I really liked him also.
Frank Dole.
Frank, yes. But she, at first, I don't know if you remember, I said to you, I didn't like her, the way that she ended, the way the book ended, because she didn't go. She never went. But you reminded me of all the wonderful things that she did. And I went back and I savored and flavored all that stuff. And sure enough, you fall in love with her personality, her love, her kindness, her generosity. And she became pretty much of a hero to me of how she treated people.
And so you mentioned she didn't go, meaning her relationship with not only Frank, the bookseller that she was dealing with, but also many of those working at this Marks and Company, and also his family, his wife.
Yes.
was exchanging correspondence at some point, but there was some kind of relationship there, and you're saying it would have been nice if they got to meet each other physically. There is a little bit of that disappointment, isn't there?
It was a disappointment to me because it kept coming up. The whole time, the whole book kept coming up. She wanted to save up, be able to go. I guess she had somewhat meager
Paycheck to
living.
paycheck. Yeah.
Yes, paycheck to paycheck, and that kind of surprised me because I thought, she's a writer. She writes for the TV programs, and I thought maybe she had more of an income, but it did end up being, like you said, Jacob, paycheck to paycheck. And so I kept hoping that the day would come when she would go, because then the years start passing, the years start coming, and she doesn't get to go. But going back to what you said, Ruben, about relationships, also the other employees, she became very good friends with also. And there was that interaction. They started writing letters to her also. And it wasn't just that one person, although they kind of felt like he was the one to correspond with her. But they also, I think, in their gratefulness and
So when you
of her generosity, they just couldn't help responding to her.
Right, and just for the viewer who hasn't read it, and we talked about this the last review, and I do want to bring something else, a couple of different elements in this review that's different from the last one, including you dealt with this book in your book club, Mom, and I wanted to ask you about that. And the other thing is I wanted to bring out some of the books that she mentioned. But before we do, this is you mentioned they were grateful, those at the Marx and Company, because isn't it true that this is post World War II England?
Right.
They were under a massive structural damage and so forth, economic problems, under rations.
Rations.
So they didn't have necessary supplies at time. Well, I shouldn't say necessary. They didn't have the luxuries that
Right.
Americans had. So Miss Hanf was sending them
Yes, she
over
was.
to Marx and Company. Some of
Yes.
this stuff like ham, canned goods, tins of meats, eggs, and things of that sort. So they were, who is this? So here it is, Jake. Who is this woman who has never, and this is one of the reasons I brought it up last year as teachers, the idea that we're expected to treat people we actually don't know. If you think about it, these are strangers, with kindness. It reminded me of the relationship with Helene Hanf a little bit. And these people she never really even met.
Yeah. I think that that was kind of the special part of the book, and Mom kind of alluded to it regarding these people that would write to her, write to her, thanking her for the food items. And I think, Ruben, part of the reason why I like that as well is because it gives you the culture, because the type of foods that they ate are very different than what we eat, right? Some of the hams and some of the devil's foods that they eat.
I actually didn't get that. I didn't. What do you mean that it was different?
Well, some of it's like in cans. Like, I mean, I don't think and even like the eggs. I mean, I guess sometimes some people eat eggs that are, what do you call it? Like they're
Powdered.
powdered eggs. And so they mentioned that in the book. So I just felt like it was a different type of, maybe the time period, Mom, I don't know. But I thought it was more English.
I think it was partly that, and also partly that was much easier to mail, send.
Sure, to mail, that's true.
Yeah,
And
that was part of it, but their eating is different than ours. But I think the items that were being sent really weren't that different, because I think we eat ham and we eat
Sure.
eggs and things, but I think the rationing had so much to do with it, and the war, of course, that had ravished the country.
Yeah.
All that had to do with what she was sending, I believe.
Yeah, but that being said, but what I did thought was really interesting was that you did get to see some of the culture. Like there was one of the letters where he writes her and tells her that they're having a high tea and they're watching
Yeah.
the Queen Elizabeth being coronated. What, she's like 93 years old right now, and that they're, you know, having a toast to her. And I'm like, man, we don't have anything like that here. And
Yeah.
I just felt like you felt like this was two different cultures and they're mixing. And she's from New York.
I think they were brought in. That's what, yeah, the
Mm-hmm.
two cultures were brought in
Yeah.
because they would mention things like that, and we
Yeah.
don't have that. Yeah,
And you
you're
know,
right. Yeah.
and you don't, you know, of course you're just reading letters, but you don't hear the New York accent, but you feel it, the way her style is. You can just feel it, like, oh, that she's New York girl, you know. And he is a proper Englishman. I know in the movie, Anthony Hopkins portrays him, and so now I have that image of Frank Dole being this proper gentleman, and he was, and he was somebody who was responsible and did what he was supposed to do as a boss, and somebody who went and looked for books and to bring those books to his bookstore. So I don't know. I thought that was fun to see those cultures mix. That's what I enjoyed.
It was
He
very
was
enjoyable.
he was certainly a gentleman, and I want to touch on him in this idea of him being a gentleman for a moment. But back to her briefly, she demanded much of them. So we talk about her generosity, but don't you feel that there are times she skated very close to the edge of being rude, or perhaps was rude? At one point, she says, now I'm paraphrasing, she says, add this book to the list of books you haven't sent me. And she had that snark at times. And so,
Yeah.
but I think I really started reflecting on her character this week. I was thinking, I think you can afford to talk that way, to demand a lot, because she was demanding, if you're that generous. You know, we're too sensitive to words. Like someone like hers would be considered rude, but we need to remember the full of the character, the whole
Yeah.
of this person's character.
But I think that the way that she spoke to them generated a closer relationship, and even like a kidding, joking type of relationship. I think it enriched it, actually.
I think at
The way-
first maybe Ruben's right though, was kind of like, what? And then
Yeah,
I think he
yeah.
started getting it. He started getting her. Like,
Yeah.
okay, this is how she is. And
But also my general point also is that someone like her can get away with more because we get a picture of her full character.
Sure.
She's sending things, giving of her time and money.
and
to
you know
these
what?
people
She's not
to these people
Yeah.
she's never met. That
Right.
says a lot about somebody's character.
It does. And she's not a rich woman. And for her doing that, does say a lot about her character, Ruben. So that's a good point. Because she definitely wanted to go to England and visit. And when her friend wrote her a letter and saying how beautiful it was, Dickinson
Yes.
looking, and it was beautiful bookshop, and
they went into
food,
they went into the shop and everything. That was,
you could tell she would probably it was killing her because she would really wanted to be there, but because of economics and because of her work, she couldn't go. So
yeah.
Let me ask you both, because we see the Dowell character, Frank Dowell, very proper, very much a gentleman, very respectful. Do you think this has to do with the nature of even letters? I mean, so look at this for a moment, because people might not know what letters look like. Right? And look how long it takes. Marx and Company, you have to do the letterhead. You have to very formal. And there is do you think that might lend to perhaps the respect of that age where people
Definitely.
work, you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
I was thinking about this book, like you shared, Ruben, that I really would like to see my kids do that. I haven't done this assignment yet, but I would definitely like to do that, where they're corresponding with somebody, maybe another student at another school or so forth, maybe have some type of relationship with another school where they're doing that, because they don't do that anymore. I remember even when I was in high school, I was still writing letters. I mean, Kimberly has letters, my wife has letters of that I sent her that, like you shared, Ruben, it has the address and the date, and then has, the letter, and people just don't do that anymore, And
I'm glad you brought it up, though, both of you, because at my book club, this inspired. There's a really dear friend of mine. She's an elderly woman in her 80s, mid to late 80s, and she, because of this book, and knew that I was moving away from the town that I was in, she wants to now be a pen pal with me.
Oh, nice. Very
Isn't that
cool.
nice?
Oh, that's
I
great.
just love that. So I'm not only going to pen pal with her, I'm going to do that with several ladies up
Let's just
there.
throw away those damn phones and let's call each other. Email, not email, but send
I
letters.
can't wait. I can't wait to
So-
do that. Actually, this week I plan to go
Yes.
and buy some nice stationery to start sending little notes of.
Nice. I love that.
Yeah,
So Mom, you were inspired, and this lady, this woman was inspired to write letters to each other through this book.
absolutely. Yes, yes. At the book club, when we were saying our goodbyes, she took me aside and she said, "I would love to start pen paling with you. What do you think about that?" And I
That's
said, "I love it. Yes." And so that's what we're going to start doing.
I think it's great, and I want to ask you about the book club in a little more detail in a moment. But I do want to say that the closest thing I do to writing letters that look something like this is when I'm asked to write a letter of recommendation, and it takes so much time to do that I find myself thinking of that person very deeply. It's like a day of thinking about a person. So I can see that once you start doing something like this, it really gives you a sense of honor, even a commitment to a person. And I think that's a good idea. Um, I think it's a good idea too, Jake, that you're saying you would want to do this as an assignment. I have to that's a good point. Well, let's talk about your yeah, we were gonna say, Mom?
I want to say one more thing about generosity because it came to my mind as we were speaking that there was an elderly lady who was a neighbor. I think she was Frank's neighbor, and they
Oh, yeah.
shared some of the goodies with her, and she sent her something embroidered, hand embroidered, and that was very meaningful
Mm.
because I crochet and I knit, and you know, when you give something away that way, especially in those times, you know, that the threads and the needles and the yarns were very expensive. For her to generously send that to her, I think was amazing. What, so much love, so much kindness in this book. Such a small book, but packed with so much.
Sure.
Thanks for bringing up that it is a small book. It doesn't take a lot to finish this. This is it. But you're right. There is a lot in these pages. It's pretty. Some people might even get emotional by the end, and we don't want to give too much away. But I will. Let me ask you about the book club. Now, what was its purpose, and what was? How did the? I mean, what is the book club basically? And then just tell us what happened when you introduced the book to the club.
So whoever introduces a book gets to host the book club.
So who's they? Who's we? Who
We
are
have
these?
it's a group of women, different ages, different, some retired, elderly ladies, me, not so so young anymore either, but I'm not, you know, in my 80s yet, but um, and there's younger women like in their 40s, 30, no, not 30s, 40s, 50s, like that. There's about 6 of us. One of them is a nurse. She was a teacher and then she went back to being a nurse and then I think back to being a teacher. I'm not sure. Anyway, that, you know, just different paths of life. And I actually went into this book club about 8 years ago, kicking and screaming because I want to choose what I want to read. I don't want to read what somebody else wants to read. So I was not real happy, but I was kind of like, come on, you're going to like it, you're going to like it, by a real dear friend of mine who was moving away. And so I did join, and she said, you're going to love these ladies, you're going to love them.
They're all
And
women?
all women.
Oh, I have
And
I have a single brother who would like that, but keep going.
and sure enough, I fell in love with these ladies, so full of, so rich in their backgrounds and in their intellect, and you know, they're just wonderful, wonderful ladies that I really love very much. I'm actually going to go back. Um, it's an hour away from where once I move down to where I'm going to be living, it's 45 minutes away from my house. So I'm going to be visiting the book club. I told him I would.
Okay.
Great.
So I recommended this book because, well, Ruben recommended it to me and I read it. And I thought, oh, they're going to love it. And they did. They loved the book. And what I did, and we don't always do this, but I thought it would be a really fun idea to serve ham. So I got some sliced ham and I rolled it up, put a toothpick. I did a little like charcuterie cups because they had olive and the pickle, just goodies,
A little powdered egg.
the I did eggs. I did uh, deviled eggs, and then I did in the charcuterie cup. It has the salami and the olive and pickle and all kinds of little goodies in there. And then to top it all off, I thought it would be really special to put out a box of C's candy.
Oh,
And
nice.
they loved everything. They thought it was, just so
Yeah.
uh, showing of what the book, her generosity to these wonderful people in England.
And you had a pretty meaningful discussion around the book.
We did. We discussed her, of course, and her generosity and how sad it was that she didn't get to go and why she didn't get to go and all that. We discussed and um, Frank, of course, and his wife and how they were related with her and they were, the wife was writing and there was other people there we talked about that other of the people in the book in the bookstore that were writing to her because it was just a wonderful relationship that they all wanted to participate in.
You've mentioned this concept, this thing here that she didn't go. I could see it really impacted you.
It did.
I will say this about that. I was reflecting on this and thinking, I don't think I've ever been somewhere, like whether it's out of state, out of country, and I've never regretted it. I've never gone to another state. I've never left my house. And I'm not talking about Almonte, right? I'm talking about like a different country or state and regretted it. It's always been meaningful to me. So I just think, man, the opportunity comes, you take it. She did have a major event with her teeth and everything. It cost her a fortune. She said she was planning on going, but you're right. When opportunity strikes, any chance you get, you take. So I think I really felt that in the book. Like this was a lesson to me.
It was, and I think it was really out of her. It must have been out of her hands not to be able to go. Really, like you say, the teeth thing. Very very expensive. Just life. And so, yeah. But it's a good. You're right, Ruben. I love that. It's a very good lesson for us to if and when the opportunity comes to take it.
Yes,
if possible.
Absolutely. I did want to. And were you going to say something, Jacob?
No. I mean, it's funny when you share that. I can't think of a time either where I've gone somewhere. I go, I wish I didn't go there, because just traveling is fun, and I think that in her eyes, I'm sure, because I think I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but she does eventually go in her lifetime to England, but not during that time period, right? But you never say, man, I wish I didn't go there, unless obviously if something happened like traumatic, but not usually. But yeah, traveling is so much fun, and it makes you want to go. It makes you want to go to England. I know for me, I'm like, man, I want to go there. I want to see even that old bookstore. Even that, I want to see that bookstore, even though I know it's not there, but the building's still there.
Because this is a book that mentions so many books. I want to bring and show a couple of these books. This first one I want to say, this is by Lawrence Stern, The Life and Opinions of Tristram Shandy. And I show this because it has been recommended by so many classic authors. They'll say it's their favorite. I don't know. There's so many. who have mentioned it. But reader beware, it's really challenging. It's a humorous, but you have to really focus and take the summer off and you shut off the phone. A couple of other books that are meaningful. This one, The Diary of Samuel Pepys. This is, well, first of all, he's a guy who really is a strong believer in Christ, but he has some passages here where he talks about the plague. Okay, well, let me just read it. He talks about the plague of 1665, and there are some similarities to our current crisis here. There's just this one part that gave me a memory. The 26th, I think, of August, 1665, he says, "The plague increases mightily. I this day," I'm doing a terrible English accent. It's end of the day. "I this day seeing a house," he says, "the plague increases mightily. I this day seeing a house at a bit maker's over against St. Clement's Church in the open street, shut up, which is a sad sight." It just reminded me of when I was driving through LA and all the businesses were closed because of the plague, our little plague. But he goes into detail about the plague back then. And then there's a moment in where he talks about the London fire. And he says at one point, there's a mayor that cries out, the mayor who's who's doing everything that he can. He says, "Lord, what can I do?" He sends a message to the king. "Lord, what can I do? I am spent. People will not obey me. I have been pulling down houses, but the fire overtakes us faster than we could do it." This complete desperation kind of hit me. And then there's this moment where it says, Pepys is just writing and what he's observing. He says, "When we could endure no more upon the water, we to a little ale house on the bankside over against the three cranes, and there stayed till it was dark almost, and saw the fire grow." So this is the great fire of London. "And it grew darker, appeared more and more, and in corners and upon steeples and between churches and houses, as fire we could see up the hill of the city in a most horrid, malicious, bloody flame, not like the flame of an ordinary fire." So the way he describes it, it's pretty intense. And so this Diary of Samuel Pepys is definitely something to look at. And I want to read real quickly this thing. It really impacted me this week in my job. So this is Virginia Woolf Reader, the Common Reader, and she has a passage on the essay, the modern essay. So again, these are books mentioned, books ordered by Helene Hanff from Marx and Company, many others, but I'm just mentioning this.
Many others.
Many others. But Virginia Woolf has an essay titled, it's a bunch of essays. Different writers and things. But she has an essay titled The Modern Essay, okay? And this is what she writes. "Of all forms of literature, the essay is the one which least calls for the use of long words. The principle which controls it is simply that it should give pleasure. The desire which impels us when we take it from the shelf is simply to receive pleasure. Everything in an essay must be subdued to that end. It should lay us under a spell with its first word.
Wow.
And we should only wake refreshed with its last. In the interval, we may pass through the most various experiences of amusement, surprise, interest, and indignation." I thought that it was really cool that I read that this week because I was teaching the essay this week. I read this before I was doing a unit on essay writing, and I thought, I'm not going to teach what I was going to teach because it's too boring compared to what she's describing. And I thought, I really want the students to feel it because this is what an essay should do. And I'm not so sure if I was teaching that. So, and here's the other part that's really cool about this is that she's describing what she's doing in her essay.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
But I just thought I'd share a couple of those books. But Any last words on the power and the love and magic of 84 Charing Cross Road?
I would say, Frank Dole, we didn't say a lot about him, but, we talk about legacies, and I think we've brought that up a couple times. I feel like he left a legacy of his life to his children, to his wife, to the workers, what hard work is, someone who's somebody who has pride in his work, somebody who is kind to others. And I think he not only left, like I said, not only to his children, but to everyone who around him. And even Helene, she was totally blessed by him. And when he died, it just blew her away. It really
Yeah.
affected her. And I think those kind of lives, I mean, that's a life I want to live, a life where I'm inspiring others, I'm encouraging others, I'm, being respectful to my name. So I just really loved his character.
Well said. Well said.
Yes.
I would only just say that just even the letters and how respectful he is,
Yeah.
the way he says "faithfully yours," he's such a gentleman. You're so right about that, and I'm glad you mentioned it. Thank you, Jacob, and Mom. Thank you for joining us on
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. I just feel so blessed that you would even consider me, honestly.
You're a mother. We love you.
I know.
Well, I think
I know. I love you too. And I know you love me.
This is getting way too mushy for my sensibilities, so we're going to end. Thank you, Mother. Cristina Valdez is joining us. 1 year of Pod and Deliver, everybody.
1 year,
Where has
that's
the
wonderful.
time gone?
Yeah.
And we'll be back. We're going to have something
God
that
willing.
this might be connected. Our next episode might be connected to what we just talked about. Maybe. There's a good chance. We'll see you next time, everybody. Bye-bye.
I love your program.
All right. Thanks, Mama.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.